consider it inevitable that Dan Osman would discover the deadly edge of his signature sport, free-falling. But were his leaps of faith, and subsequently his tragic passing, as profound as he had thought, or is it only a gimmick that has gone too far? Dan Osman was a renowned American rock climber known for his daring and extreme climbing feats. He tragically lost his life in a climbing accident on November 23, 1998. The incident happened at the age of 35 at the Leaning Tower Formation in Yosemite National Park, California. A team of experienced climbers, highliners, and riggers pulled off a stunt for the ages last week when 5 of them rope jumped from the top of Leaning Tower in Yosemite National Park to replicate the final leap of extreme sports legend Dan Osman, who died trying to do the same feat 23 years ago. Led by highliner Ryan Jenks, 37, of Lodi, who produces extreme sports videos and other content for his website hownot2.com. The group set out to pay tribute to Osman and revive his memory, to rekindle the stoked fire Dan Osman put into us, Jenks said this week in a phone interview. Osman, a prolific free solo ropeless climber and world record-breaking rope jumper based near Lake Tahoe, died at age 35 on November 23, 1998, attempting to break his own record on a 1,100-foot jump from Leaning Tower. The late daredevil, widely known as Dano, made a name for himself in extreme sports for more than a decade, surviving multiple unroped solo speed climbs, doing various record-setting rope jumps from cliffs and bridges, and appearing in the popular Masters of Stone video series. All his crazy stunts inspired me as a young climber, Jenks said. I don't free solo, but I found rope jumping fascinating. I repeated his famous rope jump on the rostrum in Yosemite in fall 2017, and 4 years later, I had to teach myself how to do this. Some in the climbing community considered Osman and his exploits reckless and insane. Regardless of the risks and their inspiration's mixed reputation, Jenks and his team set out this autumn to celebrate Osman's daring and vision at Leaning Tower by surviving it. Due to the snow, the exit roads from Squaw Valley have been closed. They had intended to go the 5 hours south to witness their friend do the longest, riskiest dive he had ever tried because they really wanted to be there. They were both seasoned jumpers. Fritsch ran a bungee jumping business, whereas Gambale was a high-diving parachutist who had done hundreds of jumps from bridges, buildings, cliffs, antennae, and other tall places with landing zones. However, Osman's upcoming autumn was neither a base nor a bungee jump. A climbing rope had been rigged to restrain Dano, as they nicknamed him, as he prepared to jump off the Leaning Tower, a granite pillar, and fall 1,100 feet, 150 feet above a boulder field at the bottom of the cliff. Not surprisingly, Yosemite officials viewed Osman's actions with suspicion. Although Osman was not breaking any laws, base jumping had been banned in the park years earlier. The rangers were plainly concerned about adding him to the extensive list of potential casualties for search and rescue operations. They were especially irate because several of Osman's jumps had been documented for print advertisements, adventure videos, and commercials. They saw Osman's performance for the cameras as a free pass for any kid high on adrenaline with a climbing rope. He set up anchors and cables on the rocks of the Leaning Tower with the assistance of many friends. The apparatus was a 1,200-foot Tyrolean traverse, or tightrope, strung between the tower and the Fifi buttress, a more compact outcrop. In order for him to fall away from the rocks, the jump line was secured close to the tower side of the traverse. Over the course of a week, Osman performed jumps of 750, 800, 850, and 900 feet, after starting with a jump of 600 feet. 2 days later, as he arrived back in the valley, park rangers confronted him and took him into custody. His arrest had nothing to do with his jumps. Instead, he was accused of a variety of Danny I Forgot offenses, including driving while suspended, a federal misdemeanor because he was in a national park, failing to register for probation, a state felony, and unpaid traffic tickets. These offenses multiplied and degenerated as a result of his persistent neglect of the nagging details of daily life. For the majority of the 14 days he was detained at the Yosemite jail, where he was the only inmate, friends and family raised money and put up collateral to post the $1,500 federal and $21,000 state bonds. On the afternoon of the 23rd, at 4:15, Daisha leaped and used a rope he had strapped to his waist to lower himself to the earth. At around 5:30, he went back to the tower and discovered Osman rushing to reset the equipment in order to make his big jump before it got too dark. "I had a feeling about it," admits Daisha. "He had to jump over the retrieval line since he was approaching the jump from a different angle than we usually do, and it was already becoming dark by the time he did so. Additionally, he had extended the rope by 75 feet, which was roughly 3 times what he typically did between jumps. He was therefore leaping on 1,000 feet of Q, which means that when he stopped, he would only have been 150 feet above the earth. I had a lot of doubts. I continued saying, 'I don't think so, Dano. I don't like this.' He informed them, 'This is it. I'm going big.' He placed the phone on his chest in a case and started the countdown. Then he halted. He questioned Daisha, who was squatting on the rock and prepared to throw a coil of the jump line as soon as Osman jumped off the cliff. 'You got the spot?' 'Got it,' Daisha said. Once more stopping and asking into the phone, Osman started a new countdown before asking, 'Did you guys say something?' They advised him to try anyhow, and this time he completed the count and flew away from the rock. The tattered rope end was hanging from branches above Daisha as he quickly rappelled to the base and followed the light of his headlamp through the rocks and trees. Then he saw Osman dozing out on his side. When he couldn't find any, he looked for a pulse and dashed through the boulder field to a payphone in the parking lot, where he called Fritsch in a state of panic. 'Dano is dead,' he remarked, while sobbing. 'He's on the ground. I just saw him. He's dead.' Daisha called 911 to report the collision, and Gambale and Fritsch promised to arrive as soon as possible. A coroner and rangers arrived at the location, but the rangers turned around because it was too slick to cross rain-soaked boulders. Later, they called the search and rescue to ask Dean Potter to locate the body and set up camp nearby for the night in order to keep coyotes and bears away. The rig was still dangling between the tower and Fifi Buttress 3 weeks later and was a substantial portion of the broken jump line. Authorities from the park were involved in a probe that was taking longer than Osman's pals believed it ought to. They took the higher portions of the jump line out in December and sent them to Black Diamond Equipment for analysis. The findings support a notion that suggests human error rather than system failure, which they have now forwarded to the park service. In other words, Osman had not understood that altering his leap angle would eventually put an uncomfortable stress on one of the knots that joined the ropes of his jump line. The cause of the accident has not yet been determined by the rangers, who are still working on their report. The climbing and extreme sports community mourned his loss, as he was respected in rock climbing and adventure sports. His legacy lives on through his impact on the climbing world, and his tragic accident is a reminder of the risks associated with extreme sports. What do you think about this? Let us know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed today's video, then make sure to leave us a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon to always be updated with the most exciting content as soon as it's uploaded. Thanks for watching. See you again soon in another video.